This time of year is when you have graduations and you have commencements. And Donnell and I have been to a lot of graduation parties. We've been even to a few commencement ceremonies, as probably most of you have. The one thing I've noticed this year is that it's been more controversial than usual at these commencement addresses and services and all across the country, and especially at universities. And one thing I noticed, one of the most controversial commencement addresses this year was given by Harrison Buckner. And many of you probably recognize him as the place kicker for the Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs. But just a few weeks ago, he was the commencement speaker. He is a devout Roman Catholic. He gave the commencement address at a small, very traditional, conservative Catholic university or college, Benedictine college. And he gave a very typical, I would say, Catholic Christian address that became quite controversial. And the thing that he said was that really one of the most important roles that a woman could have is that as a mother and homemaker. And in this day and age, that's quite controversial to find out. Then just a few weeks ago, Jerry Seinfeld gave the commencement address at Duke University. Now, for all of you young people right here, let me just tell you who Jerry Seinfeld is. Oh, but he goes, Jerry Seinfeld. You can see right there. I think it's a show about nothing. And the Seinfeld, but a well-known comedian, actor, producer. And so there was a protest at Duke University's commencement ceremony when Seinfeld was speaking. Seinfeld, first of all, is Jewish. And that makes you controversial, it appears. He has been somewhat moderately outspoken as a Jew and pro-Israel, and a number of students walked out during his commencement address. I read his commencement address. Commencement addresses are typically pretty short, and he had 3 points that I thought this was pretty good. He said, here's the 3 keys to life. Bust your tail. And I cleaned that up a little bit for today in the church, okay? Let's work hard. Work hard. 2, pay attention. Just be alert. Pay attention. Be curious. Number 3, fall in love. Fall in love with the person you love, with people, with your vocation. Just have this passion. But really, he said, really what brings it all together is, and this seems to make sense from Jerry Seinfeld, do not lose your sense of humor. And this is what he said. It's your Stanley water bottle on the brutal long hike of life. And I said, isn't that true? Just do not lose your sense of humor. Well, Ecclesiastes chapter 10, all right? We're coming now we're nearing the end of our journey through this wisdom book of Solomon called Ecclesiastes. We're down to the last 3 chapters, the last unit that sort of just close it out. I think Ecclesiastes 10, I'm thinking about it as Solomon's commencement address to the human race. In our case, maybe just for us today as humans, it's his commencement address to us. And he would probably preface it by saying, congratulations, graduates. You're beginning the next phase of your life, which we're in the human race, as we know, that's the step from temporary to eternal. But he would say something like this. Let me tell you, everything in life is meaningless without Jesus. And so you have to have this relationship with God through Jesus Christ, his Son. He would tell us that death is unavoidable and life is unpredictable. And so you need to be prepared. Don't be surprised when something bad happens to you. You should expect that to happen. I think what he would say is the only thing, though, that will really carry you through life is wisdom. It's wisdom. It's biblical wisdom. You need a sense of humor, But wisdom is the thing that really is the Stanley water bottle that will get you through this long, brutal hike that's called life. And it doesn't really matter if you're talented, skilled, attractive, rich, powerful. If you don't have the ability to recognize the sovereignty of God, the diligence to seek Him, the humility to honor Him, you will end up a failure. Why? Well, because you lack wisdom and you've been a fool. And I think what he would say is, don't be a fool. And so that's the message of that's the title of the message and the address today is, don't be a fool and ruin your life. No matter where we are in our stages of life, Solomon talks about wisdom. Now, there's two kinds of people in this world. There are those who are wise, and there are fools. So we have the wise and the fools, which means there's two ways in which to live life. You can live life the wise way or the foolish way. And so you determine how you want to live life. Now, this word fool, foolish, foolishness, folly, it's used 173 times in the Bible. It's used mostly in the Old Testament and primarily in the wisdom literature. By the way, Solomon uses it 9 times in this chapter alone. And so it's focusing on really contrasting wisdom and foolishness. And I want to give you the sort of the biblical understanding and definition of a fool. A fool is in the Bible is not someone who has a lower mental capacity, doesn't have a very high IQ. It has nothing really to do with the mental capacity. It is more moral than mental. It is dealing with spiritual understanding. Maybe the best way to understand it here and to sum it up is what the psalmist said in Psalm 14:1. Only fools say in their heart, there is no God. You know, you should know that. So there's the fool says in his heart, there is no God. And by the way, let me just kind of expand a little bit on that. It doesn't say that a fool is one that says with his mouth, there is no God. I think the biggest fool is the one that says with his mouth, oh yes, there is a God. In his heart, he lives his life as if there is no God that he's accountable to. That's the real fool. And so, it says in his heart, he lives his life as if there is no God. That's the fool. The fool is someone who lacks this relationship, this fear of a living God, and is therefore prone to always go the wrong way in life. So last week I shared a definition of wisdom too. I'll just briefly share it with you again. You know, wisdom, biblical wisdom in this sense is this God-given ability. It comes from His Word and His will. This God-given ability to make the right decision for the right reason at the right time with the right motive. And so you can really sort of turn it upside down, and then you begin to understand foolishness. Foolishness is this human innate ability to always make the wrong decision for the wrong reason at the wrong time with the wrong motive. And that's foolishness. That's the fool. And in Ecclesiastes chapter 10, 20 verses, we're going to see if we can kind of work our way through this in a commencement style message from Solomon to us. And so Solomon says, beginning in verse 1, Ecclesiastes 10, as dead flies give perfume a bad smell, so a little folly outweighs wisdom and honor. The heart of the wise inclines to the right, and the heart of the fool inclines to the left. Even as fools walk along the road, they lack sense and just show everyone how stupid they are. And Solomon begins with really these characteristics of a fool, of people. He says a fool's reputation stinks. And he uses this vivid metaphor and image of a fly that's in the perfume bottle you might see. And not, this is the ointment. This is more like a cream that would be used like we'd call probably a deodorant, but they make it in these ancient times so you would kind of deal with body odor, but a fly, and even certain flies get in and decompose. I think I did understand it like this, as a dead fly, as a fly flies into your glass of lemonade, it ruins the whole old glass of lemonade, the whole jar. So I can assure you, if you came to our house and we have a big pitcher of lemonade and Donnell sees a fly in it, we're pouring the whole thing out. She would. I don't know. I'd probably just dip the fly out and let's go with it. But I don't know. I bet she would. It just ruins it all. It's a small thing, ruining a big thing. So he talks about that. But Solomon already had touched on a little bit in chapter 7. The very first verse of chapter 7, he says, a good name is better than fine perfume. It is so much easier to create a stink than it is a sweet smell, is what he's saying. He talks about the fool's worldview is wrong. And what he talks about in verse 2, that the heart of the fool is bent towards the right, and the heart of the wise is bent towards the right, and the heart of the fool towards the left. It'd be so easy to say, see, this is a political statement. Now, this is not a political statement. It's not talking about right and left politically. It's not even really talking about right or left directionally, other than the understanding was that there is a way to live aright, and there's a way that you can go astray. And left and right and left had to deal with the right way and the wrong way. It's what it's talking about here. And so Ecclesiastes 2:14, for example, Solomon already said, the wise man has eyes in his head, while the fool walks around in darkness. So the wise man is inclined to go aright, and the fool inclined to go astray. Then he says just that the fool's actions really reveal his foolishness. It seems like the only person that doesn't know that he's a fool is himself, because everything he does, everything he says gives image of that. And this is what Solomon is saying. A little foolishness can cancel out a lifetime of wisdom. And I think if you stop for a moment, we all realize that. It just takes this one act in a moment of passion or indiscretion or just sinfulness. One act, one small decision can wipe out a lifetime of a good reputation. It's important always to be careful. Be careful, because foolishness can be powerful. Life is loaded. And you need to be careful because it can go off about any time. And so you always have to treat it carefully. Don't let bad decisions take a life in a wrong direction for you. Solomon goes on in verse 4. Says, if a ruler's anger rises against you, don't leave your post. Calmness can lay great offenses to rest. There's an evil I've seen under the sun, the sort of error that rises from a ruler. Fools are put in many high positions, while the rich occupy low ones. I've seen slaves on horseback, while princes go afoot like slaves. So this is what Solomon is saying to us as we get going into life. Fools often end up in positions of authority. I don't need to illustrate any of that for you, do I? I mean, duh. I'm just glad somebody else sees that. And don't quit. And don't give up. I think it's a broader range it's really the people that can end up in authority who have no reason to be in authority. No, they should never be in authority, but they end up in authority. You might be working for one. There may be some in office above us in politics. It covers this area right here. Some says, don't fly off the handle. Even if your boss comes at you unfairly, rages against you, don't quit. Don't quit. Calmness. The right answer spoken can can turn away wrath. You know, so don't throw fire with your word. Don't throw gasoline on the fire with your words. And so he says, just stay calm, stay true. It's part of life. Solomon goes on and he says in verse 8, talks about work. And so, you know, that's a big part of all of our lives. So he says, whoever digs a pit, they may fall into it. Whoever breaks through a wall may be bitten by a snake. Whoever quarries stone may be injured by them. Whoever splits logs may be endangered by them. If the axe is dull and its edge is unsharpened, more strength is needed, but skill will bring success. If a snake bites before it is charmed, the charmer receives no fee. Solomon says, fools take unnecessary risk and are lazy. He says, be safe, be smart, and be sensible. He's talking about, you know, there's fools at work and they act foolishly. And, you know, and part of life is accidents, and accidents do happen. But there are things that can be done to make accidents as infrequent, and they don't always have to happen, that you need wisdom. And be careful. And he's talking about if you don't have wisdom, you can harm yourself and you can harm others in doing that. And he uses these images right here. You know, you dig a pit, you dig a hole. You need to be careful. It's dangerous. I think he's talking a little bit more than just digging a ditch. I think he's talking about digging a trap for some animal or someone. And what happens is, and you not careful, you fall right into it yourself, the own trap you made. Or whoever breaks through a wall may be bitten by a snake. Now that one just was kind of interesting to me and relevant to me today, because I've been watching what you're doing back here in the children's wing, and they're tearing down ceilings and they're tearing down walls. And they're doing that for a reason. They're doing that so they know that there's not any snakes in there. No, that's not right. That's not why they're doing it. They're doing it to see what lies behind there. So when the remodel starts, they know exactly what to expect. And so what he's saying here is, a fool just breaks through the wall. In that day, walls were made out of mud or stone or whatever. There could actually be a snake there or danger there. It's more an idea, just be careful. You need to, before you break through, you know what's there. Or you're working in a quarry. Rocks can fall on you. You split logs, it can be dangerous. Or if the axe is dull. The axe is dull. You don't want to stop long enough to just sharpen it. You just want to keep beating and wailing away on it here. And so wisdom is like a sharpened axe blade. And he's saying that some the fools do not want to do the preparation that it takes to do it well. And even when it comes to life, they just don't want to prepare. And fools, sometimes they don't want to prepare, and sometimes they don't want to do anything. It's this tension of procrastination, preparation. And so he says, you need to prepare, but you don't need to delay. And waveringly here, you just need to be wise and think and prepare for the job that's before you there. Don't take unnecessary risk. Don't be lazy. Be sensible when you go through life. And Solomon says in verse 12, words from the mouth of the wise are gracious, but fools are consumed by their own lips. At the beginning, their words are folly, and at the end, they are wicked madness. So you go bad from bad to worse. And fools multiply words. No one knows what is coming. Who can tell someone else what will happen after them? The toil of fools wearies them. They don't know the way to town. I'll tell you about that in a moment. I'll probably use that one. You don't even know the way to town. What Solomon's telling us, fools are always talking. They're always talking and hurting others with their words. Be quiet. Listen. Be still. I think this is the acid test of wisdom and foolishness. Our words. It's the dead giveaway. It's the number of words we speak, and not just the number, but the words that we do speak. It's our words. And I was reading some time ago, and an author I like to follow, Paul Tripp, he's got a book called War of Words. It's sort of a practical guide of knowing the difference between wise and foolish speech. And this is what he says. This little test for self-examination. He says, quote, listen to the talk that goes on in your home. That's probably all I should say. Just stop and listen to what's being said in your home. How much of it is impatient and unkind? How often are words spoken out of selfishness and personal desire? How easily do outbursts of angers occur? How often do we bring up past wrongs? How do we fail to communicate hope? How do we fail to protect? How often do our words carry threats that we've had it and we're about to quit? Stop, listen, and you'll see how much we need to hold on to our talk and our words in this standard of love, and how often the truth we profess to speak has been distorted by our sin. Solomon says, be quiet, be quiet. And then I think just to lighten it just a little bit, because Solomon knows that's kind of gotten heavy, he just throws in verse 15. So it's a humor. So here's the humor that he throws in. He says, the toil of fools, it wears them out. They don't even know the way to town. Fools, this is basically what he's saying, fools know everything they think, and they don't even know how to get to town. And so... it's even funnier in that day, because even in that day, the roads were well known, worn, and marked. If you wanted to get to town, you could get to town. You couldn't get lost. A fool can get lost. So let me just tell you, I drove to church this morning. I don't know how many, not hundreds, but thousands of times I've done it. I did not turn on my GPS to get here this morning. I just didn't, and I didn't get lost. I felt pretty proud of myself to get here without it. I knew how to get here. But fools really don't know even how to get to town, but their words belie them. Let me kind of get to the end, because Solomon brings it down here. He says in verse 16, woe to the land whose king was a servant and whose princesses feast in the morning. Okay, now follow along what he says. Woe to the land whose king was a servant and whose princes feast in the morning. Blessed is the land whose king is of noble birth and whose princesses eat at proper time, for strength and not for drunkenness. Through laziness the rafters sag, because of idle hands the house leaks. A feast is made for laughter, and wine makes life merry, and money is the answer for everything. I'll tell you about that one in a moment. Do not revile the king, even in your thoughts. That one hurt a little bit. Or curse the rich in your bedroom, because the bird in the sky may carry your words, and a bird on the wing may report what you say. I don't know this to be a fact, but the little birdie told me seems to come right from this verse right here. And what Solomon is saying here is foolishness harms entire civilizations. Foolishness can destroy nations. It has destroyed the most powerful nations known in history, and it still has the capacity to destroy the most powerful nations today. Be aware. Be informed. Know that. And so Solomon talks about these, in the broader sense, these four characteristics of a fool, and in every area, and this could be from government to the workplace, to home, everywhere. He says they're indulgent, verses 16 and 17. This is, woe to the land whose king is, his was a servant, doesn't know where he comes from, and now indulges in all those things who come. Whose princesses, these are maybe authorities, people that are in the government. They get up and they don't go to work. They go have a party first thing in the morning. Blessed is the land whose king is of noble birth. And it's in that context, and knowing of a monarchy, but whose whose princesses, they eat at the proper time and for the proper reason, for strength. And they know they're not getting drunk in the morning or during the day right here. They're not indulgent. And so God provides things for our enjoyment. And the things that God provides for our enjoyment, fools always take to excess. That's pretty good. I made that up. I did. Fools always take what God gives for our enjoyment to excess. And so they're indulgent. A fool is incompetent. They're just lazy and negligent, not taking care of their responsibilities. Verse 18, he says, through laziness, the rafters sag. Talking about the house image. In the house, the house is falling down. And the fool is too lazy to do anything to fix the house that is falling down, the roof that is leaking there, because of the idle hands. He doesn't, he's incompetent to do that. He says the fool is indifferent. Verse 19, he says the feast is made for laughter, wine makes life merry, and money is the answer for everything. But I bet some of you have never heard that verse before. I had to do a double take when I read it again. This is what he's saying right here. And particularly what he's saying here, that money is the answer for everything, is in the sense that money may be the most versatile gift that God gives any of us. Use it wisely. Do not be foolish with it. And then you can use it with the wisdom that God has intended for you to do that and do all those things through it. So money is not evil. The love of money, which is greed, is evil. In one sense, Solomon says, with wisdom, money does so much good. And we see that in every avenue, in every aspect of life, even in the life of the believer in the church. And so we're not doing a $4 million renovation and building campaign and project unless God provides the gift of money to all of us in various ways. It's the answer, he says, if it is used with wisdom. He talks about fools being indiscreet. And coming down to verse 20, he says, just be careful what you say. Don't revile the king, even in your thoughts, or curse the rich in your bedroom. It's usually what happens in words starts to spread, and you can get in a lot of trouble for that. And I'll just kind of let that one go. This way he's saying, fools spread rumors. That's what fools do. They talk about others. And they never really talk about the good qualities of others. They say, oh, by the way, we need to be praying for. I love that one. Never get around praying for. Just let me tell you what we're going to pray for as we gossip about them and these rumors right here. Don't ruin your life. Solomon says, don't be a fool. Don't be a fool. And even one with greater wisdom, and Solomon sort of brings it down to the end right here. And I thought of those words of Jesus. Even wiser than Solomon. And Jesus told the story of two people. Because there's two kinds of people in life. Remember, here's the quiz. They are the wise and the fools. And Jesus said, let me tell you about the wise man. The wise man built his life on the rock. He built it on a rock. He built it on a firm foundation. So the wise man built his house, which is his life, on the solid foundation of the rock. And then, when the storms came and the winds blew, the rain comes down, the house stands firm. And it doesn't collapse in the midst of calamity and tragedy. It's firm. That's the wise man, Jesus said. But Jesus said, there's the foolish man. Let me tell you what the foolish man does. He built his house. For whatever reason, he didn't want to take the time, trouble, found the first place he could find. And Jesus says that the foolish man built his house on the sand. the shifting sand, the unstable sand, the sinking sand. And so the storms come, the rains fall, the winds blow, and guess what? The house falls down and collapses. And he's using these metaphors of life. So it's the wisdom is down to building. Where do you build your life? What do you build your life on? Who do you give your life to? Is it the rock, or is it shifting, sinking sand? And then Paul said in Ephesians 5:15, he says, be very careful. Be very careful how you live. Not as unwise. See, don't live like, don't be unwise, but as wise, making the most of every opportunity. That's wisdom. Here's the opportunity. Make the most of it, because the days are evil. The days are foolish. Therefore, do not be foolish, but understand what the Lord's will is. Don't be a fool. Build your life on the rock. And so I'm going to ask you to bow with me, pray. And I know what, I'm going to tell you what I was thinking. I'm not going to tell you what you might be thinking, but I know what I was thinking. You know, I've been foolish. I have been foolish. I have made bad decisions. Some of these bad decisions, carry consequences that have seemed to outweigh wisdom at times. You wonder, is forgiveness and restoration even possible? We call that the good news of the gospel. Of course, it's possible. You accept the forgiveness that's offered to us in Christ. And then you receive it in faith. And then once you do that, you invest your life in building your life. You get in the life of a church. And then you begin growing, begin serving, you begin studying His Word, and you build your life. It will be the very best decision that you ever make. It'll be the wisest decision that you would make. Because the fool says in his heart, there is no God. That must mean the wise man says in his heart, there is a God. There is a God. If there is a God, I'm accountable to Him. I need to know Him and live for Him. And so I want you to bow your head when we pray. And maybe you know Him today and just want to recommit yourself to Him. You may not even know Him today. And I want to share Jesus Christ with you. I'll be here at the front. But this is what Solomon says to us. And everything is meaningless without Jesus. You begin there. And hope and peace and direction comes. Father, I pray you'll speak to all of our hearts today. Thank you for the good news of the hope we have of forgiveness, grace, restoration, a relationship with you through your grace and through your mercy. And Father, may we be wise and live wisely and share wisdom with others. And we ask this in Christ's name. Amen.